Today, we will discuss one of the most important elements in storytelling, the protagonist. The protagonist is the central character of the story, the leading role. A protagonist can take many shapes, from a knight in shining armor to a troubled anti-hero. And because they will be the focus of your story, creating a protagonist that engages the audience on a deeply personal level is critical for your work's success. An engaging protagonist will make the audience invested in them, in their story, and in their victories. So how do you create a protagonist people want to follow? To find the answer, let's go back to the origin of theater and dramatic storytelling, ancient Greece, and one of the greatest minds in history, Aristotle. In his treatise called Rhetoric, Aristotle theorized that all methods of persuasion follow three principles: pathos, which is the appeal to emotions and the empathy of an audience; logos, the appeal to logic through a rational argument; and ethos, the goodwill that someone generates through his personal values, status, or mastery of a subject. Using these three elements, politicians of the past and of today craft a public image in which an audience believes in, creating a following. Making an engaging protagonist is no different. Let us first look at ethos. Ethos is the trust in what a character is doing or the values they espouse, generated by previous actions or reputation. A good way to create a protagonist with ethos is to give them specific values, and most importantly, a unique backstory and a personal reason for them. An iconic example is Batman's refusal to use a gun and his goal to eradicate crime after a gunman murdered his parents. Because his actions have an understandable root and he stays consistent with it, we as an audience believe in him. Another example of a protagonist with strong ethos is Jean Valjean from Victor Hugo's epic Les Miserables. A victim of an oppressive judicial system, Valjean falls into crime only to be forgiven by a bishop and given a second chance. That moment convinces Valjean to move beyond crime and redeem himself, while showing generosity to everyone he meets. So to create a protagonist with ethos, try to define the core values and ambitions of a character, and then link them to events in the character's past. Thus you will create a cause and effect link. For pathos, a perfect example is Harry Potter. Meant for an audience of young children wishing for adventure and fantastical escape from daily life, Harry Potter himself was a seemingly average child who, after suffering from his adopted family's abuse and thus gaining sympathy, found his way into a magical world where everything is possible. Even when Harry entered the magical world, he experienced events and feelings his audience could relate to. Struggling with a mean adult authority figure like Snape, or a schoolyard bully like Malfoy is something most children experience once in their life. On the other side of the emotional spectrum, the wise and benevolent Dumbledore, the authority figure every child wishes they had. While Hagrid is an adult who can understand a child's perspective, Harry Potter was so successful because he was his own audience. The best way to create pathos is to write what you know. We do not suggest to make the protagonist a stand-in for yourself, but that you create a protagonist that you can connect with. Write a character you see a little bit of yourself in, or someone you know. And finally, we have logos. A protagonist with logos is one who stays consistent with the story's internal logic and rules. For example, if you as a creator make a world where as a fact it is clearly established everyone can fly, then having your protagonist fly about will not raise questions from the audience. Making a character with logos means crafting a protagonist grounded in their world, both in personality and skills. This can be done by giving your protagonist a job or duty in the story that is integral to the setting's function as a whole, thus making your character an integral element of your world. An example of a character with strong logos is Edward Elric from Fullmetal Alchemist. Edward is an alchemist in a world where transformation of matter is possible, but respects scientific principles such as conservation of mass. Over the course of the story, Edward manages to push these laws to the extreme without ever breaking them. Logos also affects his characterization, as his journey started when he tried to break a cardinal rule of alchemy by reviving the dead, and failed with tragic consequences. This resulted in him becoming cocky and having a belligerent attitude to cover up his self-loathing. This event shows both how ironclad Logos is to the setting and how it can strengthen a character. So, to create Logos, define the eternal rules of your world you have created and ensure that the protagonist respects them. Then, when you have established your story's setting, try to make your protagonist fit within them. When ethos, pathos, and logos connect in a positive manner, you have a multi-layered character that the audience can believe in, but they can also fall out of balance. As an author, you may feel tempted to overemphasize with your protagonist and to make the entire setting revolve around them and their beliefs, breaking the story's rules for their sake, in effect sacrificing logos for ethos and pathos. A character acting inconsistently from previous behavior in order to keep the audience in sympathy, like easily outsmarting a powerful villain that was shown to be cunning, would be a breach of ethos for the sake of pathos, while ethos can be overcome by logos when a setting fully takes away a character's agency, turning them into little more than tools to push the plot forward. In the end, engaging protagonists make us see the world as they do. A protagonist that doesn't engage us is a character we do not connect with. We cannot grasp their motivations, we cannot put ourselves in their shoes, and we do not understand their role within the world they live in. If you want to see if you have an engaging protagonist, ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. Are my protagonist's values and goals clearly motivated by past personal events? 2. Have I felt the same as my protagonist when facing certain events? And 3. Does my protagonist respect the rules of their world and is an integral part of it? If you answer yes to each question, then congratulations. You most likely have an engaging protagonist. We hope that this video will help you create a protagonist you can be proud of. Now, on to the next step, making a memorable antagonist. This video was created by Wefink. We're a group passionate about storytelling in all its forms, and we started this video series to reach out to aspiring writers to give them quality content that can stimulate their creativity and refine their craft. We hope you enjoyed our show, and please like and subscribe.